Right now, your mind is controlling you, and you don't even realize it. Every thought you have, every decision you make, it's not truly yours. It's part of a system designed to keep you asleep. But once you see it, you can never unsee it. And that's when everything changes. So, are you ready to wake up? 1. The illusion you've been living in. Right now, you believe you're in control of your thoughts, your decisions, and the way you see the world. You assume that everything you know, everything you believe, and everything you feel is based on logic, experience, and truth. But what if none of that is actually yours? What if the way you think, the way you react, and even the way you interpret reality has been carefully designed to keep you unaware of something deeper? Now, I know that might sound dramatic, but think about this. Have you ever stopped to question why you believe what you believe? Why do certain ideas make you uncomfortable while others feel safe and familiar? Why do some thoughts pop into your head out of nowhere and seem to control how you feel? And why do some people seem to wake up and see the world differently while others never even realize they're trapped? The answer is simple, because the illusion is built to be invisible. It's not something you see. It's something you live inside of without even realizing it. It wraps around you like air, so normal, so familiar, that you don't even question if it's real. And as long as you never question it, it continues to control you. But here's the truth most people never realize. The moment you start to see the illusion, it starts to fall apart. And once that happens, you can never go back. 2. Why your mind is keeping you asleep. Your mind is not your enemy. In fact, it's doing exactly what it was designed to do: keep you safe. From the moment you were born, your brain was wired for one thing: survival. It avoids discomfort. It resists change. It seeks out what's familiar, even if what's familiar is keeping you trapped. That's why your mind will do everything in its power to keep you asleep, because waking up is dangerous. It forces you to see things you don't want to see. It makes you question everything you thought was true. It strips away the comforting lies and exposes the reality you've been avoiding. And that's scary. That's why most people will fight to stay asleep. They convince themselves that everything is fine. They reject anything that makes them uncomfortable. They distract themselves with entertainment, work, relationships, anything to keep their minds from wandering too deep. Because deep down, they're afraid of what they might find. But here's the paradox. The longer you fight the truth, the more it controls you. And deep inside, you already feel it. That quiet sense of frustration, that feeling that something is missing, that unshakable thought that you were meant for more, but you can't quite figure out what it is. That's the real you trying to wake up. The question is, will you listen or will you keep running? 3. The hidden programming controlling your life. Here's something you probably never realized. Your thoughts are not your own. They were given to you. Your parents shaped your beliefs before you even knew what beliefs were. Your school system conditioned the way you see the world. Society told you what was right and what was wrong. The media influenced what you fear, what you desire, and what you think is possible. And over time, all of this programming became so deeply embedded in your mind that you stopped seeing it as programming. You started calling it me. If you constantly doubt yourself, where did that come from? If you think certain things are impossible, who taught you that? If you fear failure, rejection, or stepping outside the norm, who made you afraid? Most people never stop to ask these questions. They accept their thoughts as truth without realizing their mind is simply repeating what it was taught. And that's exactly how the illusion stays alive. Because the moment you realize you were programmed, you start asking a much bigger question. What else have I believed that isn't true? And once you start questioning, the illusion begins to crack. 4. The fear that keeps you from breaking free. If this illusion is so obvious, then why doesn't everyone wake up? The answer is simple: fear. Most people are terrified of what will happen if they question reality. What if I realize my whole life was built on false beliefs? What if I lose the people around me by thinking differently? What if I step into the unknown and have nothing to hold on to? Because when you wake up, something terrifying happens. You realize you are completely responsible for your life. You can't blame your past anymore. You can't blame society anymore. You can't pretend you don't have a choice. And that level of responsibility, it's too much for some people. So instead, they choose to stay in the illusion. They dismiss uncomfortable truths. They mock people who think differently. They surround themselves with distractions to avoid dealing with the truth. Because as long as they stay asleep, they don't have to change. But what they don't realize is, avoiding the truth doesn't make it go away. It only makes the illusion stronger. And the longer they fight it, the harder it becomes to escape. 5. The moment. Everything starts to click. Every person who wakes up goes through one defining moment. It's the moment when something clicks in your mind. Maybe it's a conversation that makes you see life differently. Maybe it's a realization that shakes your entire belief system. Or maybe it's just a deep, unshakable feeling that something isn't right. And at first, it's terrifying. Your entire worldview starts to shift. Things that made sense before suddenly feel like illusions. Beliefs you held onto for years start to feel like limitations. And you start realizing that the truth you lived by was never really the truth. But then something incredible happens. Instead of feeling trapped, you feel free. Because once you see through the illusion, you're no longer controlled by it. You start thinking for yourself, you start questioning everything. You start seeing the patterns that others miss. And for the first time in your life, you begin to wake up. And once you do, there is no going back. 6. The invisible chains that keep you stuck. Even after people begin to see through the illusion, most of them still don't break free. Why? Because the illusion doesn't just exist in your mind, it exists in the world around you. Your daily routine conditions you to repeat the same cycle over and over again. The people around you reinforce the idea that this is just how life is. The media, schools, and institutions ensure you stay distracted, dependent, and obedient. But here's the truth. Society doesn't want you to wake up. Why? Because the moment you do, you stop seeking approval. You start questioning everything, and worst of all, you become uncontrollable. Think about it. If everyone woke up tomorrow, the entire system would collapse. Corporations wouldn't be able to manipulate you into buying things you don't need. Governments wouldn't be able to make you obey without question. Society wouldn't be able to trap you in a cycle of work, entertainment, and survival. That's why everything is designed to keep you asleep. Your fears, your beliefs, even the way your mind is wired, it's all part of the trap. And until you realize this, you'll keep playing the games without even knowing you're in one. 7. Why waking up feels like losing yourself. There's something nobody tells you about waking up. It feels like dying. Not physically, but mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Because waking up isn't just about learning the truth. It's about unlearning everything you thought was real. The identity you built no longer makes sense. The beliefs you held onto, they start crumbling. The things that once felt important, they suddenly feel meaningless. And it's terrifying, because for the first time in your life, you don't know who you are anymore. That's why most people run back to the illusion. They convince themselves they were just overthinking. They distract themselves with entertainment, relationships, and work. They hold on to their old beliefs even when they know they're false. Because it's easier to live a comfortable lie than to face an uncomfortable truth. But here's what you need to understand. The old version of you, it was never really you. It was just a mask, a role you were playing. And now, it's time to let it go. 8. The hidden war for your attention. The biggest illusion of all? Thinking you have control over your own mind. Because in reality, your mind isn't free. It's been programmed, conditioned, trained. And if you don't take control of it, someone else will. Think about it. Why do entertainment and social media apps feel so addictive? Why is your attention span shorter than ever? Why is it easier to scroll for hours than to sit alone with your thoughts? Because the modern world is designed to hijack your focus. The more distracted you are, the less you think for yourself. The more you rely on external validation, the more easily you're controlled. The more comfortable you are, the less likely you are to change. This is why most people never truly wake up. Not because they can't, but because they don't want to. Because the moment you take control of your mind, you have to take responsibility for your life. And that's something most people aren't ready for. 9. The moment you take control, everything changes. Right now, most of your thoughts aren't even yours. They're just echoes of the conditioning you've received your entire life. The voices of your teachers, parents, and society. The opinions you absorbed from social media, news, and culture. The fears that were planted in your mind to keep you small. But the moment you start questioning everything shifts. You stop taking thoughts at face value. You start observing your own mind instead of reacting to it. You realize that just because a thought appears doesn't mean it's true. And that's the moment everything changes. Because once you see the illusion, you can't unsee it. You start noticing how thoughts are planted in your mind. You become aware of how emotions are used to manipulate you. You begin to understand that reality is not what it seems. Most people spend their entire lives trapped inside their own heads. But the moment you realize you are not your thoughts, you take back control. 10. The final step, breaking the illusion for good. There comes a moment when everything clicks. The thoughts that once controlled you lose their power. The fears that once paralyzed you fade away. The illusion that once seemed so real becomes laughable. Because you finally understand you were never really trapped. You were just asleep. And now that you're waking up, you have two choices. 1. Pretend nothing happened, go back to your old life and keep playing the game. 2. Accept that everything is different now and step into the unknown. Most people will choose the first option. They'll convince themselves this was just a phase. They'll go back to seeking comfort. They'll shut down their curiosity because facing the truth is too overwhelming. But a very rare few will choose the second option. And once you do, there's no going back. Because now you see the illusion for what it really is. And once you see it, you can never unsee it. You are no longer just a player in the game. You are the one who shapes it. 11th, the mind's last attempt to keep you trapped. Here's something nobody talks about. The moment you start to wake up, your own mind will try to pull you back in. Why? Because it's afraid. Your brain has spent years, maybe even decades, believing the illusion. It has accepted false truths, repeated mental patterns, and lived inside a box of limitations. And now that you're breaking free, it feels like a threat. So what does it do? It fights back. It makes you doubt everything you're learning. It tells you that waking up is pointless. It floods your mind with fear and uncertainty. Because the last thing the illusion wants is for you to see it clearly. This is where most people get stuck. They reach a point where they almost wake up. But then fear pulls them back. They start questioning reality. But then they convince themselves they're just overthinking. They see the illusion, but they choose to ignore it because the truth is too uncomfortable. And just like that, they fall right back into the dream. But here's the secret. If you can recognize this mental trap for what it is, you break its power. Because once you realize that even your own doubts are part of the illusion, they lose their grip on you. 12. The moment you realize the game was rigged. There's a moment in every awakening where you suddenly see the system for what it is. You realize that everything is designed to keep you distracted. You understand that fear is a tool used to control you. You see how the world is built to make you obey, conform, and follow. And that's when it hits you. The game was rigged from the start. You were never meant to be free. You were never meant to think for yourself. You were never meant to wake up. The system wasn't designed for your benefit. It was designed to keep you small, predictable, and easy to control. And the more you look around, the more you see the patterns everywhere. The way people blindly accept what they're told. The way distractions keep people from ever thinking too deeply. The way society makes you feel like you're crazy for questioning things. But here's the most shocking part. Once you realize the game is rigged, you don't have to play by its rules anymore. And that changes everything. 13. The uncomfortable truth about waking up. Most people assume that waking up is the goal, that once you see the illusion, you're free. But that's not how it works. Because waking up isn't the end of the journey, it's just the beginning. Now you have to unlearn everything you were taught. Now you have to build a new life from the ground up. Now you have to face the reality that most people around you are still asleep. And that's the hardest part, because once you wake up, you quickly realize you don't fit in anymore. Conversations feel shallow. The things that used to excite you don't matter anymore. You start feeling disconnected from the people around you, because now you see what they don't. And that can feel lonely, and that's why so many people wake up and then go back to sleep. Because it's easier to fit in than to stand alone. But here's the question. Will you choose comfort, or will you choose truth? 14. The final choice. What will you do with this knowledge? Right now you have two options. 1. Pretend nothing happened. Tell yourself this was just interesting. Go back to your routine. Let your mind convince you that nothing needs to change. Or 2nd, act on what you've learned. Question everything. Observe your thoughts. Take control of your reality. Most people will choose the first option, not because they want to, but because it's easier, because the illusion feels safe. But for a rare few, this will be the moment everything changes, because once you decide to step out of the illusion, you will never see the world the same way again. And once you wake up, there's no going back. If this video made you question things, that's a sign you're already waking up. But don't stop here. The illusion is deeper than you think. Click the next video on your screen to go even further, because once you see the truth, there's no going back.